I'm Rene Ritchie, and I'm a tech analyst.
I'm Georgia Dow, and I'm a psychotherapist.
And welcome to Apple Talk, where psychology meets technology.
In a great explosion with Facebook and Microsoft and Apple, you know, the things.
No, it's like in the Matrix 2, which doesn't exist, when the two trucks hit each other, they just ripple.
Yeah, if it existed.
If it existed.
If it existed.
In a variant universe where the Matrix 2 was good.
Right,
Yes.
not that it exists.
And both Keanu and the ghosts were alligators. Alligator Keanu.
Alligator
It's the best variant. So in today's show,
Keanu
would
be the best
like
variant.
Puppet Angel.
Yes.
He took my
No
nose.
one knows that. No one knows that.
I know Puppet Angel. Come on.
No one.
All right, if you know
Two
Puppet
people.
Angel, hashtag Puppet Angel in the comments if you know
Yeah.
Puppet Angel.
Yeah,
Everyone
they'll
knows
all
Puppet.
lie and now just say it.
All right, they're gonna don't go to the interwebs. So on today's show, we are going to talk about Apple and Silicon Valley, I guess in general's work from home policies and how they're still shifting and still being protested. And also Mark Zuckerberg's plans for Facebook to dominate, like Kramer and karate, to dominate the metaverse. And what exactly is a metaverse? And then in our bonus segment, I think we're going to talk about the new Dune trailer.
Okay.
And boom, 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 Apple's new battery
Yeah.
pack.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
How that sound?
We'll
Good?
do that. I think that sounds, I'm accepting.
Otherwise, it's going to be a super short show.
It's going to be a really short show.
All right. So work from home. When the pandemic started, a lot of companies had to shut down. They had to get everybody home. People set up work from home. For some people, it was great because there was no commute. For other people, it was less than great because suddenly you had to coordinate their careers, perhaps their partners' careers, their kids' schools, multiple kids' schools, didn't have enough computers, couldn't get a webcam. Everything was higgledy-piggledy. And then they started to announce going back to work, but now in Silicon Valley, specifically in Santa Clara County and surrounding counties, the Delta variant is spiking significantly enough that Apple, for example, has had to postpone return to work. Apple's return to work policy previously, which not everyone was a fan of, to say the least, was you could work from home for 2 days. You'd have to be in the office 3 days, and you could get an exemption from your management. But it sounded like even if you had America with Disabilities Act, like American Disabilities Act, sorry, I'm not American, it's hard for me to remember all the laws. Even if you had significant issues there, they were being denied.
Yeah.
People wrote letters, they protested, and Apple did not blink. They maintained this until they had to postpone it. Not change it, but postpone it.
As Apple does.
Yes.
Until they had to.
Yes.
They were going to force people to be able to go into work.
Yes.
And the interesting thing, the way that we work, is that when we are in a emotional construct, when we believe that things have to be a certain way because they have to be it, such as 40-hour work week, which was a construct. It's not a real thing.
Wait,
you
what?
don't have to work 40 hours a week just because society has told you that you have to do this.
Only 40 hours?
Only It's true. You do.
Oh, that would be like
on
on vacation.
You would.
Oh, I'm
you
sorry,
do
I shouldn't
too
say
many.
that.
You do too many.
No, but a lot of people do
hours.
work 40 hours, and it's a lot.
It's a long time.
Especially with, I have no other responsibilities, so for me, it's not a big deal. But other people have
You
lives.
shouldn't work longer either, though. That doesn't make it okay. And
My
different
boss is a
subject.
complete a-hole.
That's true as well. That's true as well. So I just said true to that.
Yes, well, I mean, it's accurate. True.
Yeah.
True.
But then once people realize when the bubble, that cognitive dissonance bubble is kind of cracked open and they are freed from it, then they go, wait a second, why do I have to do this? They start to question the entire reality of why must I spend money on travel to go to a secondary location to do usually less. And for Apple, I think that for them, the reason that they really want this so strongly is because of the Apple culture.
Yes.
That they want to be able to hand groom people,
Yes.
see what they're doing, make sure that they're not talking to kind of outside sources. It's a controlling nature that
Yes.
Apple has. And I think that that's why they were so strong on this instead of allowing people to, if you want to come into work, like, and a slow trickle effect would have been better, I think. They would have said, like, those that want to go in, those that want to stay home, we'll see, and then we'll see how it goes. And then said 1 day, and then say 2 days. That slow, slippery slope would have been much more effective than strong-arming people after they've been at home and successfully doing their work.
So the part that actually surprised me there is like when you said secondary location, I went back to when you and I used to do personal protection.
Right.
And like you do a lot of role playing there,
Right.
and you have to do a lot of scenarios, and it's
Right.
like if
Never
someone
let
tries to
someone-
never let someone take
Never
you to a
let someone
second
take you to a secondary
crash
location.
the car if you have to, but never let them take you to second, because whatever they're planning to do to you is so much worse at
Yeah.
the secondary
Yeah,
location.
it's so
And
true.
I was just like, and now I think of an office as a secondary whatever they're planning
is.
to do to you.
It is.
Yeah, Apple has some interesting challenge. Like other companies are being much more flexible. Even Facebook is being Facebook, for example, is being much more flexible. Some companies are looking at it as an advantage because
Yes.
traditionally one of the biggest problems in Silicon Valley has been retention, and hiring, because there are only so many, let's call them all-star engineers, and there's fierce competition not only amongst the tech companies but also for startups where they can get an IPO and like make $1 billion potentially.
Yeah.
But also, the Silicon Valley people want them to live in Mountain View for Google, in Cupertino for Apple. I'm blanking on where Facebook's campus is. It's somewhere, maybe in Mountain View as well. It's somewhere around the same area, and it's incredibly expensive. Like even if you're a top flight engineer earning 3 figures, most of that can go towards just living in that area.
Right.
So you never accumulate wealth, and you never get to do anything but the grind.
Yeah.
And some companies have seen this as an opportunity to think beyond Silicon Valley and have a lot more remote workers. And Apple is doing more of that than they've ever done before. They have campuses in Austin and Boston and all these other places around the world, but they still want what they consider to be their core competencies in Cupertino and at Apple's building. And I think you nailed it when you said it's their culture. And often our biggest strengths can be our biggest weaknesses.
Yeah. And, I think that they also built this beautiful building, right? Which they're like, oh, now it's being used to waste. But it's funny because I think that companies think people will not work as hard if they're working from home. I think that that's also, they want their eyes on people. And some companies did these horrible, like, we're watching you while you're on the computer and tracking your time, which is a horrific idea. It really demotivates people. Please don't do this. It's absolutely ridiculous. Most
The more you
type
tighten
A,
your grip, the more programmers fall between your fingers.
most type A personalities, people that are, they it doesn't matter if you're watching them or not. They just care about doing their work. And they'll work even harder. They'll work through their lunch. They won't be chatting with people because they're in their own little ecosphere. So a lot of people that I'm working with, I'm actually saying, take breaks. Make sure you get up to get a walk. Make sure you're taking your full lunch hour, because they want to make sure that they're doing 8 hours of work. Whereas if they were at work, because they're in that location and they're already, just by being there working, they will, have a coffee, go eat, talk with other people, which is the downside from working from home, is that you are kind of this secular unit on your own, and it's harder to reach out to people because you're bothering or annoying them. Whereas if you're in a location, then you can actually see, is someone working or are they not working, and can I talk to them? And so there are definitely pros and cons to working together as a unit versus not working together. I think the hybrid program, and depending upon, if you're immunocompromised, going into work could be your life. And I think that by having a one-size-fits-all, I think that that's a ridiculous kind of way of going about something when we really are dealing with something that has, it is a pandemic.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing to me, and you said it really well there, is that time-based, if you base all your results on time, like did you work 8 hours, you're encouraging people to not work well because they're now concerned with the amount of time it takes. Let's say like I'm a 10x anything, 10x designer, 10x developer, I get 10 times the amount of work done.
Yes.
I'm going to be punished for that. Like I'm going to have to do so much more because I'm efficient, and you learn quickly to say, oh, okay, I'm just going to take my time
But you see,
on
that's
this.
the thing, though, is that you're absolutely right. But they won't. They'll still. So your type A personalities, those that are go-getters and really care, will put out so much more. And then there'll be some people that are more the B
Well,
personalities
they will until the
just
incentives
chill.
misalign for them.
No, they'll usually burn themselves out and get angry and have animosity because the company will just keep on taking, and they're the ones that will burn out because the company will just, whatever is your, you push yourself to 120%, but that becomes just normal. And then there's another 20% added on, and that becomes just normal. And now you're doing 2 people's jobs for the same amount of pay, and that's just normal. And you can until you can't.
Yes.
And then you hit a burnout.
Yes.
And so most of the people that hit burnouts, let's be honest, it's not those that are more of the slacking personality that hit burnout.
Yeah.
They don't. They're totally fine to just coast and do the minimal and give everyone else work instead of them doing the work. But type A personalities, even if you are not watching, still care about what their output is and trying to do the most that they can, but they're still getting paid the same amount that everyone else is.
So I think there is a fear within Apple because they've had to scale so much over the last over the last decade, basically. And previously, they would have a team of, let's say, 8 Apple veterans, and they'd bring in 1 or 2 new people. And those people, by virtue of being around the Apple veterans, would be enculturated. They would learn all about Apple. They'd be steeped in Apple. They'd learn the Apple way of doing things. But now you're bringing in so many people that they can't enculturate them anymore. Mm-hmm. And we're seeing that with this famous, infamous Slack group now, where they have a bunch of people. And this seems to really grind John Gruber, too, because he's saying they don't even write succinctly. What kind of Apple employees are these? They're like super complainy. They write like 19 paragraphs when 2 paragraphs would do. And that's like not really the Apple way, but that is starting to be an increasing workforce. And you're also starting to see some Apple veterans take exception to the way that they're being treated because they feel like they've been intensely loyal for all this amount of time, and it's no longer healthy for them or no longer sustainable for their families, and they're either looking for opportunities in other parts of Apple that are remote, or they're just leaving.
Yes, and rarely does it behoove you to stay inside of a company and you'll make more money. It actually is statistically, it's a better idea to go search around to be able to find out, one is what you're worth, because you not sharing the amount of money that you make actually only helps the company. Yeah. I'll say that again. You not telling other people how much your company is paying you only helps the company. It does not help you at all. If we share that out, then at least you know what you should be getting and it'll be more fair. But keeping it under wraps does not help you. So by looking at other companies, they'll pay you more than usually a company will. So unfortunately, no longer is loyalty something that is usually rewarded.
Yeah.
Usually it's kind of punished.
No, but our culture loves that. We're loyal to companies that aren't loyal to us. And not just as employees, but as consumers too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So where do you see this, Roger? Because it's not a manageable situation yet. Nobody really knows. Like they're pushing it back a month, but who knows if Delta is going to be controllable by then? If Lambda, like that's growing, I think, in certain parts of the world now as well. If there'll be another variant, vaccination levels still aren't great in a lot of parts of the world, and just the I don't know. It's hard to tell how big the sentiment is, but there is some sentiment for a more, what's the right word? Flexible work from home set of policies.
Equitable too.
Yeah.
I think that people are now knowing their worth, knowing that they can do different things, and I think that we need to be more open-minded. I think that companies are going to have to be more open-minded. I think that people are expecting to be paid a living wage for, like, shock. Ooh, let's be able to actually live on a 40-hour work week, whereas you used to be able to have one person in a household live off of 40 hours of work, and now we need 2 people, and now you need to do 60 or 80 hours of work.
Kids got to be hacking at home on the evenings.
It is not a way that is sustainable for a society, and so I think that companies need to pay people living wage. I think that they need to be more flexible about allowing people to stay home or not, and for some places that's actually cheaper for the company as well. There's some schools that are now wanting everything to be remote, but you're still going to pay the same amount of fees. And now students are like, well, wait a second.
And they're going to make the teacher buy all the supplies still anyway.
Well, you're going to be able to, instead of teaching whatever, 200 people, in university, you'll be teaching maybe, 3,000 people.
Yeah.
So it's one of these things that we have to take a look at society, and maybe we could do this better. Places like New Zealand have tested out 4-day work weeks.
Yeah, France,
and
I think, is doing that too.
Exceptionally successful.
Yeah.
And people love it. Big shock. And no, it does not actually change the amount of productivity. Let's be honest, by Friday, we're kind of all burnt. Not much is happening on Friday.
You know what we could do as well?
What could we do?
We could transfer all of this to the Metaverse.
Right, that's true. We could just work virtually.
Have you heard of this Metaverse thing?
I might have heard of this Metaverse.
So this is the thing that's supposed to, if you haven't, this is the thing that's supposed to replace the internet eventually. We had our hunter-gatherer lives, and then we had our agricultural lives, agrarian lives, and then we had industrial revolution, and then we had the cyber world, and now it's going to be the Metaverse, which is sort of like the internet, but a blend of actual reality, things that exist in our real world, with virtual reality, like Ready Player One, with augmented reality, sort of like, what size is your leather outfit?
Right.
Give me your jacket. It's like with like the glasses and stuff. But a multi-company, not like by one company, but by like the way the internet is now, a series of different networks that are all connected together, and experiences that range from IRL to VR to AR. And Mark Zuckerberg says that this is the future of Facebook.
And he wants it, and Alligator Loki.
Well, he feels like Facebook missed out on the mobile revolution. Facebook started around the same time as mobile devices, and Facebook exploded on mobile devices. But he says that we were too late. He really just he screwed Facebook over and over again. He tried to make 3 phones, always canceled his plans, hired a bunch of people, never used them, but whatever. He feels like they missed the boat on mobile, and that's why he bought Oculus, because he wants Facebook to be a huge part of what comes next.
Right. He wants to be able to control, to advertise, to get information everywhere.
So, is this something you want first, or are you looking forward to this metaverse world? Is it what you expected the future would be?
I think that that's the way that I think that embedded reality, where we have kind of an AR experience, is going to be the way that we're working towards it. I think that in a lot of ways, it reminds me of just Terminator, where you have all of this overlay of information in the world that you're at, so you can find out so much more about what things are and where they are. But I think that it's going to also draw away from social interaction, and I think that it's going to overload us and tire us out. And I think that it's going to be hard to, I think it's going to be the haves and the have-nots. And I think that it's going to have this the digital divide that is already so large now between those that can access the internet and those that cannot is immense. And I think that it's going to be even more separated in between that.
Yeah.
And it's going to increase the profits for a certain set of population and decrease the chances for everyone else. So it's not just that, it's that information overload constantly being given to you, whereas you feel like if you are not a part of this, you are missing out on things. Whereas you can constantly game, you can constantly get your information, you can be catching Pokemon as you are listening to your workforce, you're looking at your stocks.
Yeah.
But then where do we turn off?
Yeah, and it's interesting because you look at the different players in the space, and Tim Epic wants to make Fortnite into a metaverse. And there's just a bunch of people who want to have these experiences. You wouldn't go to a concert. Maybe you'd go to a concert in real life, but maybe if it's not in your city, you'd go to it inside Fortnite, or you'd go to it inside Oculus. It's these, and you'd be with your friends. It'd be social experiences, but not real, not in real life. It'd be your avatars. And obviously, Facebook's in on this, and Facebook's policy, similar to Google's, has always been, you don't need money, just give us data. You pay for it with your data. So people who don't have financial resources are going to be using data resources, because everybody's a data billionaire, as your husband is very fond of saying. The Apple version, and they've been working on this for a long time. We have Memoji because they want to make us feel comfortable with virtual avatars of ours. But you see emoji, it seems harmless, but you get used to making a digital version of yourself.
Yes.
You're boiling the water all around us. And they're working on a VR headset, and they're working on AR glasses, and they won't be data mining us the way Facebook will be, but they will be charging a pretty penny for them.
Yes.
To your digital divide point. And it does seem like what's next, but I have so many questions. And we've even talked about this on the show before. You're going to drop your kid off at school. You're wearing your glasses. You look up, there's an ad hanging over your kid's school. Who owns that space? Can Facebook put an ad over your house?
Yes. If it's in the digital space, if I'm using their headset, then they would be able to advertise no matter where they're at, which is, for them, it's great. Plus the information that they're getting as I use these glasses to be able to look at the world.
Scan everything.
Where do my eye, just think about the amount of information of what catches your eye, right? We talk about TikTok, and where TikTok is paying attention to even if you slow down your scrolling. Think about being able to do that in your house. And the amount of it, it's for a marketing perspective,
Amazon
it's
does
fascinating.
that with their drones, right? Their drones are saying they're going to secure your house, but they're also seeing if you have enough toilet paper left. Otherwise, they can order it for you.
But this could be what interests you and what catches your eye.
Yes.
And that is invaluable.
Yeah.
Right?
And so intrusive.
It would be, but we would be giving that up to be able to use many of these services.
We know you're looking at that ice cream cone.
Right?
We know you're looking at
and
that ice cream cone.
And they're you look at blue items. Most people look at red items versus blue items. And how many seconds do you spend on this? And then they could make even better targeted ads. And this information would be invaluable. How much time do you spend with which people? What do you do? Where and when?
Yeah.
Information that unconsciously you are not even aware of.
Yeah.
And then if you can compile this information, you could find out pretty much everything about someone. Like even looking at people's pupil dilation can tell you whether
Yes.
someone is, heterosexual or not. If they like, the
Jaundiced
color
or
red
not.
over blue. It could tell your health. It
Yeah.
could tell your blood oxygen level eventually.
Could I pay to be better looking in the not even the virtual world, but like if you're wearing augmented reality glasses, could I pay Facebook $1,000 to make me slightly better looking when you're looking at me?
Well, when we talk about social engineering, right? They've already done that, where that if you get credits, you can, like in certain parts of the world, if you get credits depending on how socially appropriate compared to what the culture wants you to be, what the government in that culture wants you to be, they'll give you credits.
But
so
this would be like an
if
IR
they like you better, they could make you look better,
like a beauty filter.
and pay for it, versus someone that
Smooth
they
me.
don't like could end up becoming,
Hag me.
alligator you, which
Yeah.
I think would be cute, but that's just alligator you Loki. But you could end up getting that for your virtual world. And we already know from video games that people will pay a pretty penny to be able to have something that makes them look special, even though it's just pixels and not real.
Yeah, I mean it's
Did
really...
I go too deep on that?
No,
Was there
not
too
at
many
all.
layers?
I mean,
brought in a lot of stuff.
when Casey Newton was interviewing Mark Zuckerberg, one of the questions he asked him is like exactly like who will own the virtual world. If you go to the U.S. Capitol, will you see this is the house of the U.S. government, or will you see this is where the rebellion began, or will you see like who owns the information space on all of these places?
Well, the other piece to it, the part that I find is more insidious, is that by reading your interactions, they could find out what political affiliations that you have, whether you like blonde or brunette,
Yes.
whether you like, this idea causes you an aversion or doesn't. So it's not just that they'll be able to see what you're interacting with and what it is, but they could find out things about you that you're not even sure of,
Well, they made
and then use it against you.
Yeah, like the newsfeed was
control.
designed to make us sad. Maybe they'll test AR to make us sad.
Yes.
Yeah, or happy.
And
Press that
that's
button, monkey.
really scary, because that ends up going into being able to see into your thoughts
Yeah.
and interactions with things. And we have already had that, people, which this is a good thing, but again, technology, any tool is good or bad depending on how you use it, but they've already gone through and been able to have someone that is completely not able to control their body be able to talk through a computer just through their brainwaves, which is awesome. But also, this starts to kind of come into thought policing, where they'll be able to know what you are thinking.
So, devil's
it gives me
advocate.
just a 1984 kind of vibe.
Can't they do that already just based on our internet search history and what Facebook articles we read and what groups we belong to and who we communicate and socialize with? Isn't this just like a next step? Like, yes, it is absolutely an Orwellian dystopian future, but isn't it one that we already kind of exist in?
We've touched our toes to it, but it can go so much deeper. And you could unhook to it, but just like with the internet, that there's how many jobs can you really do that you can have zero internet access at home or at work and still do the job? Now there are, but they're becoming more and more expected. Like you can't even drive a car without a computer chip in it anymore. That's, to me, it's kind of dystopian and a little bit scary. And again, yeah, maybe I'm going way too far and you're like, Georgia, slow down. But I think
Slow
that
your roll,
we need to ask the questions before it happens.
Yes. And who's into that was one of the there was no good answers to that either. It's like it's nice to have a multi company network thing like the internet, but we still don't really have a good control over the internet. Like we don't have like who polices the internet.
Right.
There are some governments that feel it's their job. There's some companies that believe it's their job. We have a certain amount of say because what we use and what we don't use helps decide the market power of a lot of these companies, but there's no clear leadership of the internet or direction to the internet.
Okay, I'm going to go one more layer, and I'm sorry,
Are you
but
sure?
I'll just do it, is that it now is kind of like that even countries don't have control over, like, we're now kind of like this
China does.
universal...
They have the Great Firewall.
But it becomes more and more difficult to police that, and people want to be outside of that realm. It becomes really hard for countries to kind of exist as companies work through all of them, and as countries make rules for only their country, but you can't do that on the internet. It becomes something that it's this weird full world issue.
Like the privacy laws in Europe had a bunch of American websites just leaving Europe.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're going to be like, you're going to have a law made in the EU about this metaverse, and then you'll have like Facebook going, sorry, no Facebook node on the metaverse for you. Sorry, Spain. Sorry, Portugal. Sorry, Belgium.
So yeah, I apologize because that kind of brings it from like, just Facebook and, AR, VR, multiverse to what is the internet and how do we police something that is worldwide.
Well, that's one of the classic philosophical questions is even if someone succeeds in making a utopia, into whose hands can you entrust it? So let's say it wasn't Mark Zuckerberg. It was someone way less problematic, some quasi messianic figure who says, here is a metaverse and it is beautiful. Buy now. Like, we'll ruin it. We'll ruin it super fast. Like, as soon as we get our grubby hands on it.
Yes.
It's not gonna persist in any Plutarchian state.
Right, until we
Ideal
have a proper League of Nations. But even then,
No.
depending on who runs these League
Yes.
of Nations, yeah.
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 Yeah. Mhm.
Power corrupts.
Yes.
And absolute power.
So let us know, what do you think about this whole metaverse thing? Is this something you're way into that you can't wait for, that you just want to strap yourself into and fly into the future? Like, is this how we're gonna be spending time on space flights, to get to Mars and beyond one day?
We'll just
Or
think we're going to Mars.
is this just the next great filter? The next great filter. Let us know in the comments. Now, we do have one more topic, two more small topics to discuss, but that's going to be in the Nebula portion of this podcast. If you don't have Nebula, it's great. Never been a better time to jump on it. You can go to curiositystream.com/AppleTalk, sign up. It's less than $15 a year for CuriosityStream and Nebula. So you get all the series, all the documentaries on CuriosityStream, and then you get access to all the videos, George's videos, my videos, MKBHD, Jordan Harrod, Thomas Frank, Legal Eagle, Low Spec Gamer. I mean, there's just so many people on Nebula, ad-free, sponsor-free, and many of them with bonus segments like we're about to do on this very podcast. Do it. It's less than the cost of a couple of pizzas a year. It's amazing.
I think that's like one pizza.
Maybe.
It's definitely not a couple of pizzas.
Yeah, it might be a pizza and a coffee, the way they're charging us these
pieces of
days.
pizza.
Two slices.
Yeah.
But if you are leaving us now, Georgia, where can people find you?
You can check me out. You can send me an email, georgia@westmounttherapy.com. You can go to anxiety-videos.com. I am on YouTube, youtube.com/GeorgiaDow.
Yes.
And on Twitter, it's @Georgia_Dow. How about you, Rene?
I am @Rene Ritchie on most of the social things, and youtube.com/Rene Ritchie on the video platforms. The video platform, singular.